Hi everybody, today we're going to talk about whether you should keep in touch with your adopted child's foster carer, how long you should do that for, and what the implications are for you and the child. I'm called Nyree, I have 2 adopted sons, but I've also been a foster carer, so I want to draw on some of my experiences. So first of all, the thing to say about it is that I keep in touch with all of the children that have been adopted that I was a foster carer for, and I'm very appreciative of that, and I love to see them growing up and the things that they're getting involved with. On the plus side of keeping in touch with the foster carer of your adopted child, if the foster carer has done a good job with your adopted child, then they would have made an attachment and a bond with them. And when I was going through the training as a foster carer, I remember one thing that stood out in my mind as to what we were told, and that was, if our heart does not get broken when the child moves on, then that we've done something wrong, and that they wanted us to build that attachment with them. And also what was said to us is, in the whole world at that moment in time, you are the only one that that child has to love and to be loved by. So as a foster carer, you are trained to make that attachment and that bond. So bearing that in mind, of course, you would hope that the child has also made an attachment back with you as a foster carer, and to suddenly remove them from the foster carer's home into a new home, which is loving, yes, but is still new, and never see that person again, is going to create a huge amount of loss for that adopted child. Our concept is, when we adopt children, is that they're coming home to mummy or daddy. It becomes their forever home. Suddenly everything changes for the child. But the reality is that in the moment when the child is with the foster carer, that is the mum or the dad that's caring for them. They might not call them mum or dad, but their concept is, I'm being loved by someone, it's a loving home. So for them in that moment, it's the concept of a mum and dad figure. And so again, they've lost that. And bearing in mind they've already lost their birth family, it's a second loss for them. So I just really feel strongly that if you can keep in touch with the foster carers, it has to be a win for your adopted child. There's a few circumstances where it may not be, and I'll cover that later in the video. From the point of view of how long to keep in touch with a foster carer and how quickly to see them after you take your child home from the original placement, when they first come into your home, how quickly then should you try and see the foster carer? Of course it's going to vary, but I'm going to just give you my opinion, my experiences. In the UK, there's always a time when you see the foster carer a few weeks after the placement, which is normally arranged by the social worker. Now, when we were adopting our boys out, that we've now adopted, if that makes sense, because their adoption broke down, so as foster carers we were adopting our boys out, we didn't realise that this visit is potentially the only visit that's only ever requested, and that if the adopters never want to see the foster carers again, that's entirely their right. And as I'm making this video, is that if that's your choice, that you want to have your adopted child home and then never see the foster carers again, that's your right to do that, and that's your decision. Nobody can change that decision for you. So I didn't realise that that could possibly be the last time that we were ever going to see the boys, when we'd had them for over 2 years. There was then a huge gap before we saw them again, and I don't really think that was helping their placement. So stick with me a little bit. Sometimes trying to hold back from seeing the foster carers for a long period of time is counterproductive. When a child suffers loss and trauma and they lose yet another person, they need to know that that person exists, and that will help with your placement, because surely their anxiety might well be that they're then going to lose you, because these foster carers that were acting as mum or dad or have been taken away dramatically, they've disappeared, and maybe then that's going to happen with you, that you are suddenly going to disappear because they did. So it's counterproductive in my view to try to hold back from seeing the foster carers. So I would say you go for your initial visit with them and see how that goes, and then you may maybe wait a month or a couple of months and then book in another visit to see them. And I would say that you front load it, that you see them quite a lot within the first year, and then after that, once your child is properly starting to settle in your home and understanding who you really are, that you are going to be the permanent home, then maybe you can do it less. That's the way I would see it. And perhaps then you could do a once a year visit, and you could even drop down to letterbox if you want to. And I think that's the way that it works best for the child, and that's the way that I've seen it work best. There are a few times maybe when you wouldn't do that. Not every foster carer is the same. Not every foster carer goes into it for the same reasons, although I would say the majority of foster carers are good at their job and they're committed to the child. But there are some situations that I can think of where things maybe haven't worked out brilliantly for the placement. I can think of one example where the bonding with the foster care and the child had completely broken down for lots of reasons, genuine reasons. And I guess then if the relationship doesn't seem to be there with the child and the foster carer, then that's going to be counterproductive to meeting again. If the foster carer is many, many miles away and you have a young child and you've got to travel many, many miles to go and see them, then that would be really difficult as well. If you've not managed to form a very good relationship with the foster carer and you've really tried and it's really, really awkward, and there's tension and an atmosphere, then maybe that might be another reason why you wouldn't try and maintain that relationship. The other thing I want to cover is, what do you do when you meet up? How do you play this game? It's quite tricky and it's quite difficult. I know for me as a foster carer, sometimes when you meet with adopters for the first time or the first couple of times, it can be a little bit awkward, because maybe you feel that you know the child really well and you know that as yet the adopter does not know the child really well. At the same time as wanting to keep in touch with foster carers and the other way round, the foster carer shouldn't try to take over too much and try to be too close to the adopted child, because you want the adopted child to be able to leave you okay and go back to the adoptive family. Now, as adoptive families, what do you do if you do have that first meeting or that second meeting and afterwards your child is totally distraught and it's very disruptive and you find it really difficult to settle them again back at home? Now, that's probably going to be common, and the time that I think that's going to be common is when the relationship with the foster carer was at its best. So I'm going to say to you, if a child really misses the foster carer, is really distraught when they're taken away from the foster carer after the meeting, it is actually a good sign. It's a good sign because they had a really powerful attachment with the foster carer, and if they had a really powerful attachment with the foster carer, they can have a really fantastic attachment with you. So don't be afraid of it if it's very disruptive afterward. Maybe you might want to wait a little bit longer, but don't hold back too much, because the more you do that, the more the child, even if they don't say it and even if they don't know what's wrong, will be internalizing the fact that they've lost this person. And I do think that we do try and normalize loss and trauma for children. We expect them to move from a birth family and recover almost immediately with a foster family. Then we expect them to be moved from a foster family and recover immediately because we tell them that we're their permanent family, we are their home now. But children don't have that concept, and so I think that we have to be patient with them and let them recover from loss and trauma, and part of that is letting them be able to let go properly of the foster carer and do that properly over a period of time. The other thing I want to say to you is, the more that you get to know the foster carer and the more invested you are in building up that relationship with the foster carer, the better it will be for you. Now, it's not always possible, I understand that. As I say, foster carers do vary, and foster carers sometimes don't want to invest in those after visits either if they're very busy. But if you can get to know the foster carer, not just as a foster carer, but as a friend and part of your support network, then everything that happened that they know about the birth family and that they know about the child on a daily basis, the fears and phobias, Everything that they know, gradually they can impart to you. And even if you want to do things completely differently from them, even if you don't agree with their lifestyle, the way they run their family, what they know is part of that timeline and part of that history for your child. And you don't want to lose that, because it's their birth family, foster family, and now you. And it's such a crucial part of understanding the child and their current development, because it might be that things have happened in the foster family's home that never got recorded, because they are the finer details, and I do think that they are really important for you to know about your child. So guys, hope you find that helpful. If you did, please subscribe, and I will see you on my channel, which has loads of adoptive support on there and lots of playlists. You'll find bonding attachment playlists, therapeutic parenting, adoption and parenting. It's all on there. So see you on my channel. Thank you. Goodbye.